Hello YouTube Pipers, I've got my Savinelli Bing's Favorite here that I'm going to fill up with Prince Albert. I haven't had any of that in quite some time. Out of the jar it feels kind of dry. I don't know if it's always been dry or not, but I don't know. Okay, I got it stuffed. Seems to draw pretty easy. I had that closed up tight. I don't know why it feels so dry. You never know. I think my lighter's running out of gas. I'm trying a new tea. It's called Lapsang Souchong tea. And I'll tell you, it smells like some of the tobaccos I have. Kind of a smoky taste to it. It's different. It's a lighter tea. As my dad would say, it looks like gnats. Meaning, it looks like gnat's piss because it's so light. I know this one ran out. I need to fill that up again. But this one comes pre-filled, and that's the last of a 3-pack. Not bad. I've come to the conclusion that if I don't quit burning my mouth with the smoke from these things, I'm going to have to give up pipe smoking. As much as I like the idea of it and the look of it and the pensiveness of it, I might not be the perfect candidate for it. I'll never go back to cigarettes. And after Dad made me smoke that one cigar from start to finish until I was green and didn't know where I was, I don't think I'll ever smoke a cigar again. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes for the rest of the year. Hello, YouTube Pipers. Double O Pipe here. I forgot to introduce myself. I just jumped right in. Sorry about that. Anyway, Hunter's a little more restless than usual. I need to warm this up a bit. I don't know if you can see that or not. See how light that is? That's why Dad would call it gnats. He had a lot of little expressions like that. That's better. It's a little more flavor with the warmth. Well, Thanksgiving's over. I think my son's still down there. I'm not sure when they're coming back. But I had my meal. I made macaroni and cheese from my mother's recipe. Excuse me. And I think whenever I put what I did not eat down into the fridge, it weighed about 20 pounds. It felt like really heavy. And it was okay. Needed salt. It always needs salt. But the day after Thanksgiving is called Black Friday these days. But to kids, back in my day, it was the first day before Christmas, before the beginning of the hankering for what it was you wanted for Christmas. There was always one item. We got one item that cost more than anything else we would have or get anytime during the year. And we kind of always told our parents what we wanted in hopes that they would get it for us. Probably back in the early days, I don't remember ever writing to Santa Claus as some kids have done. But telling my parents was the avenue to getting your want list to Santa. Now, you could put on that list 2 or 3 things that you want, but there was always one major thing that was what you really hoped for. I think really the first Christmas I remember was after my folks came back here. And we went to my grandmother's farm for the first time. We did that every year until 1960. And I wasn't even in school yet, so I was preschool when we went the first time. And it was a time of excitement. It was all new to me, Grandmama's farm. Chickens running around in front of you, and dogs running after the chickens, and walking out to the field where the cows were, and over to the hog corral, I don't know what you call it, hog pen. And there was a smokehouse, which made me think of this. And what we do when we're pulling smoke into our mouths are like that smokehouse. And I remember Granddad always had huge joints from the pigs that he had slaughtered before we got there, hanging up in the smokehouse with a low burning fire so that all these joints would be smoked up. I guess the whole reason behind that was so that they would last over the year. It would preserve them. But at Grandmama's farm, the night before Christmas, we'd all sit up in front of the Christmas tree. There was no electricity in this house. It was all kerosene lanterns, and the tree must have had candles on it because there was no electricity, I know. And it was lit up. And the folks would be talking, and Clyde and I would be looking at all the presents under the tree to see which was ours. And about 8:30 or 9, Clyde and I were told it was bedtime. I don't remember my cousins being there, but I'm sure they were. And this was my first experience in that old Georgia home. And we went into the bedroom. Clyde and I slept in the same bed. The mattress was a feather bed mattress. The down from whatever birds they had out there, just stuffed into a big pillow, but it was mattress sized. And you'd fall into it, and whoosh, the whole thing would come up to your side of your face like that. And if you stayed down there, you would probably just suffocate because you were close off from the world. So you move around, but you'd have to fluff it up to get these feathers to be right for your mattress. And our parents came in. We got into bed. They put the blankets over us, kissed us both good night, and said, "You boys go to sleep now because Santa won't come if you're awake." So me, being the obedient child that I was, I had to have been 5. Because like I say, I hadn't started first grade yet. And this was just a couple of years after we had arrived from England. But Clyde and I were too excited to go to sleep, so we sat there jabbering to each other what we were going to get, what we wanted. And he said, "Now what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to keep quiet so they don't keep coming in here and checking on us to see if we're asleep." I said, "Why is that?" He said, "Because we're going to listen for when they stop talking. And then we can sneak out there and pick up our presents and try to figure out what they are." I said, "Well, we can't do that." He said, "Why not?" I said, "Because if we want Santa to deliver presents, he won't come if we're up." He said, "Don't worry about that. We're just going to sneak out there real quick and look around. That's all." I said, You're not worried about him not delivering our presents?" He said, "No. We'll be back in bed plenty of time. We just want to see." I said, "Well, how are we going to see? We don't have a flashlight or anything." He said, "I got this watch. It shines in the dark, and we can read by that light." Well, me believing everything Clyde told me, I said, okay, that sounds like a good idea. Well, we lay there. Every time they opened the door to peek in, we just close our eyes and kind of breathe real slow like we were asleep. Then they closed the door and heard somebody say, it's okay, they're asleep. And then we heard a lot of activity out there. And after about half hour, 45 minutes, it kind of quieted down. Clyde said, we're going to wait a few minutes. I said, all right. He said, now you got to be quiet. And I said, okay. Finally, all we heard was the fireplace out there crackling. No adults talking, no movement out there. So Clyde got up and I followed him. It was cold. My feet were freezing on that floor. I mean, the only heat in the house was that fireplace that was in the other room. And these floorboards, you know, the cracks were like that in between the boards where the air just came up from the bottom of the house. And we sneaked out through the door real quiet. Got to where the tree was. There were no lights on the tree because they put them out. And Clyde got his watch out and he did this. And he looked around under the tree and that faint light from the dial, had to have been radium back in those days. That faint light was given just ever so slight light enough to look at the packages. You couldn't tell the colors on the packages, but you could read the writing, or he could. I couldn't, but he could read the writing. And he said, I see mine. And he picked it up and he shook it and tried to figure if he could figure out what was in it. I said, you see anything for me? And he looked around and he found this tiny box. He said, I think this is yours. He said, shake it and see if you can tell what's in it. I said, it doesn't feel like there's anything in it. And I shook it next to my ear. I said, I don't think there's anything in it. And he said, well, you can find out tomorrow when we open them. And he put it down. I said, if that's all that's under the tree, that means Santa Claus hadn't been here yet, so we need to get back to bed. He said, okay, we'll get back to bed. And we went and slowly crept back into the bed, had to fluff that mattress back up again, and we lay down on it and sank into it. And being as late as it was, we just went zonk right out. And next thing we knew, we were hearing people walking around and opened our eyes and it was light outside. And Clyde said, it's Christmas. We need to go out there and see what Santa brought. Now, the night before, we had gotten our stockings for the chimney mantle. And mine was an old silk stocking. It was a white silk stocking. And it must have been, I don't know, a yard long. Grandmama's old stocking, I guess. And I think Clyde's had a hole in the bottom so that he put some under it so whatever went into it and fell out, he could get more into his stocking. But anyway, we went out and there was my stocking just cram-packed with things. And his was too. There was nothing in the bucket below it because the hole was too small for anything to go down. So the first thing we did was take down our stockings and go through it. Apples, oranges, bananas, pecans, Brazil nuts, fruit, fruit and nuts. That's all that was in there. So that was a disappointment to a little kid. Anyway, there was a big package for me and a big package for Clyde. And they weren't there the night before, so we knew Santa had come. I guess, knowing Clyde, they figured he would probably come out there and try to sneak a look. I don't really remember what I got because that was, like I say, that was the first Christmas there. First Christmas at my grandparents' house, my great-grandparents' house in Georgia. And I think the excitement of being there for the first time and seeing all those wondrous things that I had never seen before, barnyard animals and wide open spaces and fences all around and that big well out in the side and the hand pump on the inside. All of this was what stuck with me in my memory. I don't remember, because I don't remember asking for anything that year. I'm sure I did, but I think I was just too young to really know what I wanted, because we didn't have television showing us what was available. And we had magazines and we had comic books. And we had a Sears catalog, which we looked in. But I don't remember what I got. I don't remember what Clyde got either. But I tell you, the fun of getting up in the middle of the night, freezing my feet off, and trying to discern from the light of his watch dial what was under the tree was the memory I have from that particular Christmas. Also, for a child, having to go to the outhouse out in the field was quite the thing, especially if you had to go at night, excuse me, in the cold by yourself with all those strange noises around you that you had never heard before, and the woods being about 10 yards away from where the outhouse was and the empty field behind it. It was quite the experience for a young boy. We had outhouses in England too, I know, but they were closer to the house. And they were enclosed and they had a string you could pull to flush. It wasn't like this board with a hole in it that you sat on and everything that you eliminated went right down to the ground. Yep. Those are the things I remember. And there were several more times that we got to go down there. I think we went every year, but I remember that one and just bits and pieces of others. But it was quite the experience. My first real time with Clyde's devilment, which wasn't too devilish at that particular time. I mean, he was like 9 and I was 5. So he would have been in 4th grade. It's hard to believe. That's the first Christmas I remember. I don't remember any Christmases in England. I don't remember anything about England except getting my TB shot, which is a story I told a while back. At any rate, Christmas is coming. I'll try and remember all the things that were important to us as children back then as Christmas approached, and tell you those stories as the days go by. So for now, I'm going to say, God bless. I appreciate your stopping by, and I hope you had a good Thanksgiving. Till the next time, bye-bye.